Hey, what's up guys? This is going to be the second part to our video. And in our last video we created somewhat of a satellite looking object. I wanted to go over something really quick, and that's to save your .blend file. Now it's pretty self-explanatory. Go to the very top, go to File, then Save As. Then just type whatever the name of your file is going to be. So in this case I'll call it satellite or whatever, that's not how you spell it. Click Save as Blender File, and you should be able to now access it and submit this to the website. And in our last video, we were talking about rotating, extruding, and scaling. In this video, I'm hoping that we can create something that we could hopefully recognize with all that stuff that we learned. I wanted to point out, though, that one of the more important things that I want you to remember is select all with A. I'm going to edit an object mode with tab, and the faces, vertices, and the vertex view, and how I had you in faces view for the most of the time. So if you haven't already, let's create a new project. Go to File, go to New. It's going to ask you to reload startup file. Just click it, and you'll have a cube. And just for the sake of easiness, let's make a sword. And so obviously this is kind of a big cube, so let's scale it down with S. And I usually like to work with, or at least from the bottom up, and shut the hell up. Yeah, that was for Brian if he's listening. Okay, yeah, making a sword. Let's go into Object View with Tab, and let's turn on the Faces view again. So again, we know that we're in Faces view because of the boxes, or the little dots in the boxes. So let's make sure that we don't select everything by pressing A, and we have just our plain object here. And so we're going to start with a hilt. And I know it's going to be a boxy hilt, but we'll deal with that later. And we're going to turn this cube into our sword. And yes, we're going to completely sculpt a whole sword out of this. So let's start at the very bottom and select up it, clicking your left click, and extrude that out a bit, and just a little bit, or you could really do whatever you want. But so now that we have two objects here, press S to scale, then let's extrude that just a tad bit more, and then let's scale it inward, so we kind of have like a diamond bottom hilt kind of thing. Okay, so let's now select our top object, or top face. Let's extrude that just a little bit, scale it inward, and let's, in case that we need more viewing spots, I guess, zoom out with your middle mouse. Then while it's still selected, let's extrude that into our handle. Okay. Now, when I'm creating something with extruding and scaling, I like to make sure that I create some extra faces or some extra objects, just so I could later on extrude or scale that even more. For example, when we scaled these objects down here, we created these faces. You could then edit these faces by extruding or scaling them out. So, to make the handle, I'm going to select the top face of our hilt, then we're going to extrude it up just a little bit. Okay, and that's great. And that's as thick as the hilt I want it to be. So let's select a side, then extrude this out. Select the opposite side, extrude that out. And I know it's not even right now, but we'll get into mirroring later. So for now, we're not going to make a geometrically shaped sword, we're just going to make a sword. Now, in our first video, we were talking about moving things on the X, Y, and Z pane. In case if you're in this view and you want to further make this sword a little bit more interesting, you could select a face and then use maybe even this the blue arrow to move this side up a bit. So it's really a nice, interesting looking, not plain sword. And of course, if you mess up, then just Control Z. But that's good enough for now. And let's continue with creating our sword. Let's select the top face here. I'm going to extrude this out. I'm going to scale it in the, let's see, Y-axis. So we're going to make the blade. and you'll see that we kind of made sort of like a pyramid, hexagon, whatever the hell that thing is, which is great. But let's then select the new face that it created for us and extrude this one out. It's too much. Let's extrude it back. No, I want to do it a little bit more than the hilt. And then, you know what, I'm going to create a little bit of, kind of like a sharp point. So I want to extrude just a little bit more, and I want to scale it down. There you go. Okay, so as you can see, it's somewhat coming together. Now let's select the top face of the base handle over here. Zoom out so you can see it. Press E to extrude upward. And then the side of that, we're going to select. And let's get into a better view. Press E to extrude this one out. And you know what? I'm going to scale this one by the y-axis again to make it even a sharper point. Now you could always just click the merge button over here at center and, oh no, actually never mind. Cancel that, never mind, just kidding. I'll tell you about that later. But yeah, let's just scale it with the y-axis so it becomes somewhat of a sharper point. Just do the best you can, it's not going to be perfect. So zooming out a bit, as you can see, it's getting a lot better. We're able to see that it's an object. Now it just looks like a paddle or something. But let's continue to make this sword. At the very top, it's pretty boxy, so let's extrude the top side just a bit more. Let's then extrude the sides. And let's see, how do we want to do this? And you could always experiment by messing around with some of the angles. Like for example, if I just stretch this out a bit, and then I selected this face, brought this down. And then in fact, you know what, you could even switch views if you want to experiment with that. Select a vertex or vertex, and then just mess around with that too. So you can move this vertex downward, or these two vertexes. And then select a good spot and then just back up for it, or back out of it. Now, of course, I did a terrible job. I kind of skipped over it, but if you switch to vertex view, you'll be able to select the very specific corners, which is to left from the faces view. And you could then select the vertex by left-clicking on a side or an angle, and then holding shift and then clicking on the other vertex that you want to select as well. And then, of course, to move this, make sure that you are using the guided arrows, just so you can have a more perfect looking object. And you know what? That looks pretty good so far. You know, I've only spent a couple of seconds with this, so you know what? Let's scale that. Oh, wrong button. Scale on the y-axis. Sharp point, and there you go. You have now created some kind of weird-looking orcish blade thing. And this is a very simple sword. You could use these techniques to create something a lot more interesting than this. You can make the base of an exotic sword using this method, but you're going to have to do some other things to make it look more interesting. So hopefully you've gotten, or you've learned a few things from this. Keep working on the scaling, extruding, rotating, and all that stuff. And we're going to hopefully experiment with mirroring in the next video. I'll talk to you later.